Hello, everyone. How is everybody tonight? This is, of course, Unfound live for May 18th of 2026. I hope you all have had a fantastic week. I've had a pretty good week myself. Thank you for asking. And we are going to continue the spectacularness by doing this show. And as usual, I've lined up a variety of compelling topics for tonight's 2 hours. And I hope that you will find it enjoyable and maybe a bit entertaining. This is a little more laid back than, of course, the podcast is. Kind of let our hair down. And but we still, of course, cover some serious stuff, as we will be doing tonight on this live show. Dee is telling me she DM'd me. Dee, I'm sorry to hear that. Very sorry to hear that, Dee. Sorry to hear that. We can talk about it later, Dee. Sorry to hear that. But I have a spectacular show prepared, and it was interesting in putting the show together. It was like, well, what disappearance am I going to analyze? And I had something picked out, and then I ran across the one that I actually will be doing tonight, and it just happened. Yeah, you better behave, D. It just happened to be a recent story, even though this disappearance happened way back in 1980. There's actually recent news on it, and that, as you can see in the title, is the disappearance of Laureen Rahn, R-A-H-N. This is a disappearance that I've run across before because of all the reading I've done, studying and everything, but this is the first time I will be taking a shot at analyzing it, and it's not going to be easy. I do try to challenge myself when I pick out these disappearances from week to week. When we don't want to do the ones that seem fairly straightforward. And so this one, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. So that is on the agenda tonight. Also, a killer preacher, and it just happened to have occurred decades ago, right here in my backyard of Pinellas County, Florida, where seemingly a guy who was some kind of holy roller preacher got away with the disappearances of at least 3 women, and they're still missing. Nothing was ever done to him legally regarding their disappearances. We're going to take a look at that. And these are stories that I've known about simply because I live here, and I have, over the years, 15 years of living here, I have taken a look at disappearances that have happened in Pinellas County or the Tampa area just to see what's going on. And I've known about them, but this will be the first time that I'm talking about them at all publicly. And then, as you can see in the title, I also want to talk about this young woman who was shot by her boyfriend's father. And a lot of speculation. There are no cold, hard facts as to why this happened, but I'm going to take a look at it from a gun owner point of view, and we will see what we can deduce from it. It very well may be just some, let's just say it, just some straight out murder, but the guy has been charged with manslaughter. But let's see what we can deduce from reading what's been written. And like I said, a lot of speculation. Oh, it was because of this. It was because of that. It was on purpose. It was an accident. I will tell you that nothing is in stone yet, but I want to take a look at that story as well. And of course, I have other things that I will be bringing to you to fill up the next 2 hours. While you are listening/watching tonight, I hope you will consider supporting Unfound through a variety of ways. And in fact, somebody has already done so. Who is this person? This is Tech Reviews, new member joining. I really, really appreciate that, Tech Reviews. And Tech Reviews hit the super chat as well. Tech Reviews coming to us from down under, in a land down under, in Australian dollars. Thank you so much, Tech Reviews. What Tech Reviews has done is hit the super chat button. That is one way to support what we are doing here at Unfound. I appreciate it, Tech Reviews. You are very generous. Thank you so much. That's one way. Also, patreon.com/Unfound podcast. Also, paypal.me/Unfound podcast. And once again, as Tech Review did, hit the join button. If you were watching on YouTube tonight, and the button is there, it depends on the app that you're using, if you're on your phone or a tablet. But hit the join button below, and you can become a member of the YouTube channel and get things that other people do not, and get some things early. Other people have to wait for the stuff. So there's a variety of ways that you can do that. And then on top of everything else, you can see the overlay for tonight's show, missingpersonsconsulting.com. You might want to go check that out as well. So who is in here? And then we will continue. Hello, Charlie. What's going on with you? Talk to your mother. Called me in the middle of last week. I hadn't talked to her in a while. It was a pleasure talking to her. And hello, Amy. Tech Review. Once again, thank you. What's going on? Thank you for your generosity. And I've been good. Thank you, Tech. D. LaFord, what's going on with you? Good to see you in the chat tonight. And Cult, hello to you. Joyce Rivatuzo, everybody say, everything 2020. That is your other name. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, this YouTube stuff, how it changes, it's changes names and everything can get a little confusing. Thank you. Now I know who you are, Tech Reviews. Thank you so much. Joyce Rivatuzo, everybody say hi to Joyce, of course, former guest of Unfound, going back to the early days. And very sadly, of course, Joyce's 2 daughters are still missing, Peggy and Patty McDaniel. So that's who's in here right now. And we'll see. It's weird how this works. As I've learned, we get more people as the night goes on, which seems to me to be counterintuitive. But what do I know? So what has gone on with me since the last time we got together? Well, I'm glad you asked, because last Wednesday, something that I talk about all the time now, and that is my trivia team, my new trivia team, kind of new trivia team. I've been with them since October. So I'm going into my third, we're in the middle of my third season with them. They were a team, and they were actually a competitor of my previous team over at Finley's. And then once that team disbanded, I went and joined this team. Well, we won this past Wednesday. And it was something because, the way things work there's so many teams, so many people, so competitive, that it's very rare that a team wins by more than just a few points. Usually, if the winner gets the final question right, their total points are probably going to be in the 170 range or something like that. And then there'll be maybe a team at 168, a few teams at 166. That's usually the way it works out. It's very, very close. Our team won by 14 points this past week. I mean, this was reminiscent of how my previous team used to win when we would get on a roll and we would just destroy everybody. I mean, for weeks at a time, and would win not by a few, but by a lot. And that is what it kind of felt like last Wednesday. We were ahead by 7 going to the final question, and then we doubled our points. And like I said, it ended up being 14 points, which in those trivia terms, it's like if it were a football game, winning by like 28-7. I mean, really. And so it was so good. We took a little bit of a chance on the final question. You know, we were due, though. We'd won earlier in the season, but we didn't get the final question, but we still won. And then, a week and a half ago, or almost 2 weeks ago now, we came in, second place? But we got the final question. So we were due for another win, and we've been playing well. And so that's a big thrill. And we moved up to third place in the trivia standings. Still some weeks ago, I would say at least maybe 5 weeks left in this season. You got to be in the top 5 to make the playoffs. So we really rocketed up the standings with that. And we're now in third place. First place is about 100 points ahead. Second place, we're right behind second place, but there are 2 teams behind us that are pretty close. So it's still very, very tight. But it was pretty good last Wednesday. Now, as far as Saturday trivia, didn't play this week. The team is a smaller team. There's only really usually like 4 or 5 of us. And 2 of them are husband and wife. Well, they had to go to Indiana for a wedding. So we decided to just take the week off. So no trivia at Sharks this week, although I do anticipate that I will be back at Sharks this Saturday. And certainly in a couple days, I will be at Finley's again to see if my team can defend our win from last week. So it was a really, really good week in trivia. And like I said, it reminded me of the days when I was on a team where we would, like I said, win, like 7 weeks in a row. It's like crazy. It was really, really crazy how much we used to win. I mean, and people thought we were cheating, never cheated, would sit right there in the middle of everybody so everybody could keep an eye on us. Never cheated. Really impressive. And it wasn't even like there was like one overtly knowledgeable person on that team. It was just a really good team effort. And really, when I look back at last Wednesday, that's what that was too. It was a really strong team effort. So let's see what hello Joyce. Hello Lisa. How are you? What did you think of the Kansas City Chiefs NFL draft pick? What'd you think of that, Lisa? I got distracted making magic lemon pudding cake for my kids. None for me, sadly. I'm not eating sugar these days. Hello, everyone. Ed looks amazing tonight. I do look amazing tonight. Thank you for noticing, Lisa. Thank you. I would get distracted if I were making magic lemon pudding cake too. And I'm not even much of a lemon or pudding guy. But that does sound delicious, even though I'm staying away from sugar too. Yeah, and then there's DD. Wonder Woman is here. So that's what's going on with trivia since last week. In other news, of course, my car. And the only downside of owning the Mustang that I got back on March 23rd is that gas prices. I would get this car right when gas prices, I'm not here to get into the politics or anything of it, but I would get this car right when gas prices go through the roof, right? And it's a car that it doesn't need 93. In fact, I could put 87 octane in it and the computer will alter things so it doesn't ping or anything. I'm not here to get into the engineering of that or the physics of it and explain that to everybody. But I can run regular unleaded in this car, and the computer will, alter what the engine's doing and everything. Of course, I won't have as much horsepower, but you can safely run 87. Whereas, a lot of high performance cars, if they have high compression, can't do that. But on this car, you can. The problem I have is I didn't get this car to put 87 octane gas in it and, have less horsepower than it has. And when I say less horsepower, it's not like it drops 100. It may only be like 15 or 20 horsepower, the difference between 93 octane and 87. But I didn't drive a Sonata for almost 9 years to then buy another car in which I'm going the wrong way in the horsepower. So, and if you're wondering, well, how much is 93 octane in your part of the world, Ed? Florida traditionally has lower gas prices than the national average. At least that's my impression. 93 octane around here is like $5.40 a gallon. I mean, I feel like I'm in Europe. And so I've really been trying to keep the driving to a minimum. And in fact, I did the calculations of how many miles I've put on my car, this car, since I got it back in March. And even with that 6-hour trip that I took some weekends ago where I went up to Brooksville, over to Claremont, south down to Arcadia, and then back up over the Skyway Bridge, like a 6-hour circle trip. Even with that trip, I'm averaging 13 miles a day. That's it. So which means if I stay there, I'm going to put less than 5,000 miles on this car a year. So that is really what's saving me. If I were commuting with this car, let's say over to Tampa or something, oh my gosh, I can't even begin to imagine it. What I've discovered, it's not so bad. Like when I went on that trip and I was actually on highways, 4-lane highways, cruising 70 miles an hour, does fine. Absolutely fine. Certainly gets in the high 20s. Certainly. But cruising around town, man. Even though I'm not on it, I when I shift, I'm maybe, when I'm accelerating, only going up to about 2,000 RPM and shifting, just babying it and everything. It is something. But I'm having a lot of fun with it. The car is spectacular. But the gas prices are taking a little bit of away from the fun right now. And I think that is the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future. Once again, not to get into the politics of this or anything, but I don't see that changing anytime soon. And I just, have to be, look at the bright side that I don't have to commute. And if I don't want to leave my condo, I mean, I live in, this nice place here. There's not a lot of reasons for me to leave here unless I have to go food shopping or if I just get cabin fever and need to go to some local coffee shop and do some work there, which is actually what I did today, but I only went like 3 miles away. So the gas prices are getting in the way, but other than that, the car is spectacular. Just love cruising around, man. You just don't even though I'm only going, putt-putting around. And I got a smirk or something from a BMW BMW driver a couple days ago, and I do notice that now. I forgot about that. Some of you know that, I did have two Mustangs before this one, but going way back to one to 1990 and then one in the early 2000s. And I forgot about that. You get a car like this and you just get attention from certain types of people. And there would have been a time in my life, dare I say, where that might have, they might have goaded me into doing something that is illegal on the public streets. Let's just put it that way. These days, I take the attitude, that very famous video, ain't nobody got time for that. And so I'm just putting around, and I am happy with that. And there you go. But like I said, what's everybody? Tech Review, thank you very much. You're very kind. Called gas is $11.20 a gallon where I live. Where are you? 11. I must be in liters or something there. Called. You're gonna have to explain that to me. Amy, 659 in California, I believe it. And that is Amy. Is that might even be for 87 octane, right? That might just be regular unleaded in California. Maybe you want to clarify that. In other news, dishwashing machine got fixed today. Luckily, they didn't have to replace it. Here, there was something going on with a sensor that was jammed, and the guy could just fix it on the spot. So that's all good. Thought I had something weird going on with my air conditioning between last night and today. But that seems to have worked itself out as well. Once in a while, the air conditioning thing just goes weird, and it'll just keep blowing. Even though it's reached the right temperature, it'll just keep blowing for a while. It happens like once or twice, 3 times a year. I don't know. But now it's working fine. And then my shower, though, I don't know when my shower is going to get fixed. So I've been having to take showers in the other bathroom, which is very inconvenient. And the reason that is because the owner so far has decided, they're trying to get over the idea of spending how much they're going to have to spend to fix that shower. And it's not cheap. So, but if I use that shower, it's just going to leak out more onto it's not really the bathroom, but the floor outside the shower. And you start talking about water getting on floors and everything in a high-rise building, who knows where that water can eventually go. So there you go. I talked about that last week. But that's really what's going on with me. I'm feeling great. Went to the gym today. Been getting some sun. I've got a little tan going on here. I don't know if you could tell that or not compared to my face. Maybe I always cover up my face. And that is about it. Let's get to the stuff that I put together for all of you tonight. And I want to start here, being that it came out this Friday. Of course, we did not get into a particular disappearance this past Friday. It was simply a setup. You got to hear from Assistant Eric, who's been doing a lot of good work. And, of course, you've heard him way back in 2017 when he was the guest for the Donna Michaelenko episode. Of course, we replayed that earlier this year. And then you've also heard him when I did interviews with the assistants. I think it was last year or the year before. So he has made a couple appearances. And so we talked about what all of you are going to be hearing over the next several weeks. And the exciting thing is that I've actually been able to add on another disappearance in the series. So even after I told you that it was going to be at least 3 episodes of different disappearances. It's actually going to be 4, and I'm working very, very, very hard on making it 5. So I'm very, very excited about that. Spoke to somebody out of the blue, just took a chance in messaging someone, and she got right back to me. And so we're going to be able to discuss another disappearance where a group of people went missing off the coast of Florida in the 1980s. And the really intriguing thing about it is none of these people are listed on NamUs. None of these people are listed on Charlie Project. And although I haven't talked about it for a while, you know how much I'm into that. When you can find these disappearances that have escaped the databases and everything, oh my goodness. That just gets me all excited about, because that probably means really nobody has heard about them. And so we're going to get to talk about it, and very excited about that. So, of course, this Friday, as I've already announced, Teresa Hickman and Angela Westbury, the disappearances that got this idea started. And then after that, 3 weeks after that, 3 Fridays after that, will be also disappearances off the Atlantic coast of Florida. And I hope to add at least one more. I mean, I'm ecstatic with 4 weeks. If I could get to 5, I can't, really be happy about that. And like I said, I'm hoping to still interview the Coast Guard guy, but he's been a little busy. Got some time to work that all out, so I'm happy about that. And then, of course, Eric is going to be coming back. So we're going to be doing this till like the end of June. And like I said, I'm very happy what has gone on with all of this. So that's the Atlantic series. And maybe some of you, being that you got to hear what is going to be featured, maybe some of you have already started doing studying ahead like a good straight A student. And if you started to do that, that's fine by me. If you've gone maybe to the Charlie Project or NamUs, or maybe some of you even have newspapers.com accounts to look some of these disappearances up, or maybe there has been some coverage of those other disappearances, certainly not with Teresa Hickman and Angela Westbury, but maybe those other ones. Of course, we've, covered Tony Schwartz's disappearance before. And so that, maybe you want to go back and listen to that again before we put it within the context of the series. And I have to tell you, given everything that Eric and I have done since 2024 and looking at all this, I have to tell you, I think my opinion on Tony's disappearance may have changed a little bit, but we'll get to that eventually. Lisa says, nice tan. Got to love sunny Florida. I do. It's getting hot out, Lisa. It's getting hot. I'm only out there for about an hour, and I haven't got burned yet. Just doing it one little step at a time. But yeah, it's getting a little warm out there. But certainly my face, like I said, I cover up my face, but because don't want to get too many wrinkles. But it's quite a contrast. Colt moved from Florida to Jordan. Still watch your videos. Jordan, the country? Colt, you're in Jordan, the country? In the Middle East? Really? I think that might be a first. If so, that is fascinating. Wow. And I know we've had people tune in from Hong Kong and Germany. And of course, we have our Australian listeners, our Ireland listeners, our England listeners, Canadian listeners. I don't know if I'm overtly surprised by some of this, but when I start hearing about like mainland Europe or Hong Kong or Jordan, That would be something, Cult. That is fascinating. Moved from Florida to Jordan. Okay. Amy, great first episode. Thank you. Hello, Denise. Everybody's wondering. You are all going to be hearing from Denise, who is now in the chat there. Hello, Denise. You'll be hearing from Denise and her sister, Anita, this Friday. And I've known Denise. I've been talking to Denise about her sister's disappearance since really 2016. We've known each other, even though I've never personally met her. I've been talking to her about Angela's disappearance since 2016, 10 years. Finally, getting to interview her. The way I think about it, Denise, I had made a promise to her a long time ago that I was going to continue to work this, going to try to do something about this. No different than, of course, with Joyce Rivatuzo, who's also in the chat tonight. When I found out that she had 2 missing daughters, we know about people going missing on their own. But, when you have 2 daughters who went missing, it's just even that more, you feel that more compelled to do something. And so with Angela and Teresa, and having known about their disappearance for a while, then talking to Denise, and then realizing that nobody has done really any overt media coverage in their disappearances, I said, I'm going to get this done somehow. And finally, almost 10 years later, we're making it happen. And, we're going to do it justice. And in that episode Friday, we're going to be releasing information about their disappearances that has never been made public before, where we can name names and dare I say, point some fingers. So Denise, good to see you tonight. Call Jordan the country. All right. Wow. I'm wondering what the story is on that cult. If you have, can type it out. If you could say, I might be interested to know, moving from Florida to Jordan. Are you originally from there? Are you citizen there? Of course, cult, we recently featured a disappearance of a guy who was from Jordan, although he's an American citizen. Haidar Abu Shakr cult. You're aware of that? And wonder what you thought about that. That episode, of course, the dual coverage with John Lorden. Wow. And fishing, checking in late. Totally fine. Fishing. Thank you, Lisa. You are generous as well. All right, moving on. So that's the Atlantic series. I'll probably talk about it again next week, and we'll talk about it until it's over here on Monday nights. And we've been doing think tanks, although we didn't do a think tank yesterday. We'll be doing think tanks on all of the disappearances featured in the series. But moving on, I had a former guest contact me last week, and we may be having another resolution to an unfound disappearance. Not sure what to make of it right at this second. But the guest emailed me. We had some emails back and forth. It seems like it's going in that direction, but I've told this guest, well, let's wait until the police are ready to make an official announcement. Nothing is official till it's official. A lot of disappearances have happened in this particular area, so you can't jump to conclusions that it just happens to be the one that was featured on Unfound. Of course, as soon as it's a big yes or a big no, I will let you know. Just not sure what to think about it right now. I will say this, though. If it is true, if it is a resolution to one of Unfound's disappearances, this will actually be one of the ones that I got wrong. And on that note, you should note, I'm going to talk about it in a second a little bit more. But in the Q&A episode that I'm currently recording, it's going to come out. Oh, I'll surprise you sometime soon. I do list all of the disappearances that I've gotten right, and I list the few that I've gotten wrong. If anybody was wondering, I put it out there in the public so you can hear the list. So these would be all of Unfound's disappearances that are resolved or somewhat resolved, and what my prediction was, and if I got it right or not. That list is in the upcoming Q&A episode. So it's probably on my mind when I hear about this possible resolution to a one of Unfound's disappearances, and the way it's been explained, if it is true, if it actually is the person who is featured, then yes, I got this one wrong. I think I can even go further to say that this was one where I did not think it was foul play, but probably it's looking like it was foul play. So stay tuned. Amy says regarding Cult, I'm guessing job or marriage. Hello, the cake. What's going on? Cult got married. No, I hadn't seen it yet. I will for sure look it up. Oh yeah, Cult, come on. We featured when was it? The end of March, the beginning of April, a disappearance from Manchester, Connecticut, Haidar Abu Shakra, who had joint citizenship in Jordan and the United States, and he went missing after meeting a couple guys who were supposed to be giving him money. So we did the traditional Unfound episode, but then I also appeared on John Lordan's YouTube site, Lordan Arts, where he did his own share of coverage. I showed up and we talked about it. So being that you now live in Jordan, Cult, yeah, you got to check that disappearance out. Absolutely got to check it out. Moving on, the Q&A episode, like I said, I told you that it was going to happen. I realized I hadn't done one in a while. I thought I was doing one every year, but it doesn't seem like I did one last year. I look back, I don't think I did. So it's actually been 2 years. And I usually do those like in late March or April, something like that. I don't think I did one last year, but I am doing one. It's not going to come out on a Friday. Like I said, I'm going to surprise you with it. It's a good mixture of, it's a lot more true crime questions than non-true crime questions, but I do mix in some non-true, let's just call them non-true crime questions too, but they aren't so self-serving as to here's what's going on in my life or anything. For the most part, the questions that have nothing to do with true crime or disappearances have things that I'm hoping all of you are going to find helpful things about that have gone on with me, and maybe you can apply those things to your lives. So it's not just something like, hey, Ed, what are your top 10 movies? No, it's a little more in depth in that, although I do answer a question about trivia in there. So I got a question that was actually asked in here maybe 3 weeks ago that I transported over to this Q&A episode. Yeah, it's going to be a couple hours long, but it's mostly disappearance questions and stuff like that. And then I mix in a couple non-true crime stuff. And how far am I into that? I'm more than halfway. I've certainly way more than halfway through it. So be looking for it sometime soon in your feed. I will surprise you with it. LaFord says, yes, you got to check it out. Call it, but yeah, LaFord supporting the Haidar Abu Shakra episode. I thank you, LaFord, for telling Cult, yes, you got to check it out. Yeah, watch it tomorrow. Okay, fantastic. Once again, not just my coverage, but John's Lorden's as well. Go over there, check it out over there as well. One more thing before I get into the headline items tonight, and that is I'm going to be starting, it kind of goes along with the consulting. I'm going to start doing some very short videos. I don't know if they're going to actually, how they're going to be classified by YouTube, whether it's like a short or regular video. But I'm going to start doing some short videos. And when I say short, I mean like 2 minutes, about certain topics regarding disappearances. Just some of the things that I learned and just really compressing them into the most concise thought that I can. You know, it's going to be questions like why dogs fail, why rewards don't work. It's a lot of things that I've covered on this live show before, but I think I want to start putting those in videos in very short forms, so people can see that very quickly. They're not like the episodes that are 2 hours long. But if somebody wants to just learn something about disappearances in general very quickly, then this is what I'm setting up. And in fact, today, while I was out at that coffee shop today, I listed at least 25 topics that I want to cover. So I'll probably just do one a week. I have enough work to do, but I'm going to start doing those. So be looking for them on the YouTube site right here on YouTube. But I'm also going to be putting them once in a while on the Missing Persons Consulting website. Of course, that is separate from the unfoundpodcast.com site. And then I'm also going to be posting them to Instagram as well. So they will be in a variety of locations. It'll just me being in front of the camera like I am now. And I'll just pick out a topic and give my insight for about 2 minutes. They'll probably be, it just depends how smoothly I can do it. I'm guessing to start, they're going to have to be edited a little bit. We'll just have to see, but they are one way or the other going to be fairly short, not like 30 seconds, but not 10 minutes either. I've picked out 2 minutes. I think that'll be plenty. So be looking for that. That's one more reason that you should be subscribed to this YouTube channel. You should, of course, like this video, give this show a thumbs up. Of course, give thumbs up to all of the videos here on YouTube. And if you're on Facebook watching tonight, go like the page, give Unfound a nice review, go to the discussion group, and ask to be admitted there as well. Amy, I like YouTube Shorts. Well, I'm going to be doing some, Amy. I've never done any of them before, but now is the time. Now that I've figured out I have something to say that can be, put into 2 minutes. Called YouTube Shorts will draw people to your channel. Good idea. You think so? Called? All right, we're going to find out. That's not really why I'm doing it, but I can't argue with that. So we'll just have to see what happens. I'm really doing it for educational purposes and also for the consulting purposes. But of course, you'll be able to leave comments on them and like them and all that. All right, we have an hour and 15 minutes to cover the rest of the stuff all the stuff that is in the title of tonight's episode. So we still have to do the analysis of Laureen Rahn, who went missing from New Hampshire back in 1980. I want to talk about this killer preacher who caused the disappearances of at least 3 women right here in Pinellas County, on the streets that I drive even though gasoline is $5.50 a gallon. And then I want to talk about how this young woman got killed by her boyfriend's dad. And in fact, I'm going to go to that story right now. And yes, what you're seeing there, Marty Speedman has taken time out of his very, very busy life. Very, very busy life. He's, Marty Speedman is EAW, is a very important guy, so he thinks. And he is, coming in and joining us, gracing us with his presence. But of course, as is tradition, he's 45 minutes late. Hello, Marty. Good to see you. Everybody say hi to Marty. It's been a while. All right. Whitney Robeson, Robeson. This is a story that has gotten national attention. And so let's take a look at it. And let's see what we can deduce from this. Yeah, I'm glad my attendance didn't go unnoticed. Yeah, Marty. Okay, yeah. I know how much you love to be noticed, Marty. I've noticed how much you love to be noticed. The death of a recent Auburn University graduate who was killed in an accidental shooting, allegedly by her boyfriend's father, has been deemed a homicide. The Jefferson County Coroner and Medical Examiner's Office made the ruling and also determined Whitney Robeson's cause of death, a gunshot wound to the chest. The stunning developments came after Robeson's boyfriend's father, Jeffrey Scott Towers, Towers, was hit with a manslaughter charge in the tragic 2-month-old case. So this happened back in March. Robeson, 22 years old, who had just landed her dream job as a trade consultant for restoration hardware. Dream job, trade consultant. Okay. Was found dead inside a Trussville, Alabama home about 15 miles northeast of Birmingham around 9:30 p.m. March 7th. The Jefferson County Coroner and Medical Examiner's Office ruled Robeson died from injuries to the left lung, heart, aorta due to a gunshot wound to the chest. Whitney lived with inimitable grace, if I only knew what that word meant, keen, quiet attentiveness and loyalty, boundless generosity, and an uncanny way of always knowing just what she needed to do, her obituary reads. Towers' attorneys say that we know that the facts will show that Mr. Towers has no criminal history, has been a productive and upstanding citizen for his entire life, and is not guilty of these charges. Details of how Towers allegedly mistakenly fired at his son's girlfriend remain unclear. Like I said, I've done my best to try to find out, what's the scuttlebutt in this area of the United States. Anybody know these people? In fact, did anybody see it happen? It's just all conjecture. Towers' lawyers, John Amari and Dane Stewart, described the dad as an upstanding citizen with no criminal record in a past statement to the Post. What happened to Ms. Robeson was a tragic event, the attorney said. While we understand that the justice system must play out, we know that the facts will show that Mr. Towers has no criminal history, has been a productive and upstanding citizen for his entire life, not guilty. That's already right. But Robeson's family isn't buying his claims of innocence. The Jefferson County District's Attorney's Office determined that Mr. Towers acted with criminal recklessness. So not recklessness, criminal recklessness, a lawyer for Robeson's family said. Given that determination, efforts to portray Mr. Towers as innocent are not supported by the evidence in this case. Towers' attorneys say that we know that the facts will show that Mr. Towers has no, and then that's already been read. Man, they included that 3 times in that article. Man, really trying to fill up the space. Somebody trying to get to the expected word count. in that article. Remember, that brings to mind way back in our school days. Remember, you had to write a book report that was like 500 words long. And so, like, there's no contractions, things like that. Everything that we would do to try to spread it out, use as many words as possible by saying as little as possible. Remember that? That's what this reminds me of. The same statement is written 3 different times in this article. I don't know what to make of it. So in my notes for this, I have, as I've already stated, there's no clear story on what actually happened. We don't have any information about why she was over there. We don't have any information about how many people were there. We don't have any information. Was there drinking going on? Were they arguing? We don't have any information on at least believable, certainly a lot of conjecture out there, but nothing that reads as a factual account, anything that I come on here and say, yeah, this is what I think happened. Nothing about, did he have a problem with her? Nothing regarding any of that. But I have to admit that in reading this article, and probably even the reason that I chose to talk about it tonight, it does kind of remind me of the disappearance of Susie Lyle. How many other people, maybe you've already seen this, some of you already know about this story, maybe some of you don't. But when I was reading that, did any of you happen to think of the disappearance of Susie Lyle? And if you're not familiar with her disappearance, the reason I bring that up is because certainly even among Susie's own family, including her mother, Mary, who now is, of course, a very good friend of mine, there's an idea out there that maybe Susie's on-again, off-again boyfriend did not cause her disappearance, but maybe her on-again, off-again boyfriend's father had something to do with it. And the reason I bring that up is because, as Mary and I talked about almost 10 years ago, after Susie went missing, the on-again, off-again boyfriend's father was riding around saying he was seeing Susie here, he was seeing Susie there, here, there, and it got to the point where the police ended up following him around, and of course, he was just making stuff up. So I admit, when I saw this story and read about it, it just brought that to mind. So maybe that is something. Lisa's saying hi to Marty. Marty's saying hi to everybody. Marty is Mr. Personality. I think he's even more popular than I am, which is fine. Marty says, I hope all have all been well since my last attendance. Definitely a filibuster. Yeah, definitely similarities, Marty says. All right, yeah. Marty, it's always good. If you've forgotten, it's always good to agree with the host. So what it took so we have to look at it this way. First of all, it took 2 months to charge him. This does say something. I think that if this was just something that was done in anger and there were witnesses to this, they were arguing about something regarding the son or something. Once again, this is just an example that, he got so ticked off at her that he took his gun out and shot her. It happens. You want to see idiocy with guns, just get on your, of course, you're on YouTube. Just go and do a search for all the idiocy that happens with guns and road rage killings and everything else. But being that it took 2 months, it would cause me to lean away, to be drawn away from the idea that this was just something done in a fit of rage or revenge or something like that. Like he was, running around the house and finally cornered her and shot her or something like that. It would not take 2 months to charge him if that's what happened. But what 2 months could tell us is this is something more along the lines, did they have to do, maybe was he drunk and did they have to take a blood sample? And, how long does that take? Or could he have been on something and they had to do a blood test and had to wait for the results of that to come back? That's one way we might interpret 2 months. We also might interpret 2 months as maybe there was some ongoing beef, but that wasn't what was going on that night. Maybe they were just getting along fine. Everybody was just getting along fine. And then she got shot. And then people started talking, well, the father did have a problem with his son dating her. And so they had to do a little bit of investigation, not actually right there on the property where it happened, but they had to track down people who maybe weren't there, who maybe knew a little bit more about the victim, knew a little bit more about him, maybe because the people on the scene couldn't be trusted because, they're emotionally involved. We could define it that way as well, why it took 2 months. And remember, he has not been charged with out murder. It's manslaughter. And, I hope to never be charged with anything along those lines in my life. But when it comes to serving time, I think you'd rather go to jail for manslaughter and murder. I think what it also rules out the idea is that he did this in self-defense, meaning something went on and she had a gun and he had to shoot her, or she was upset with the father for some reason and, had a knife or something, was coming after him. Of course, that would mean that it was self-defense. I think we can rule out the idea that, she was in the process of harming his son, and that he felt he had to take some sort of action regarding all of this. So just looking at the amount of time it took to charge him, I think we can rule a lot of things out. Lisa said Ed is always number one. See, that's what I'm talking about right there. Thank you, Lisa. Ainsley thought under the influence. So LaFord is going to the alcohol angle. I think it's LaFord. It's certainly something to consider. I don't know if it's my number one choice, and that's really not where I'm going to go with, just maybe this is a public service announcement more tonight than an actual really, really getting deep into what really, really, really happened. But certainly that it being that it took this while to charge him, sure. Where I would want to go with this, being that one way you could get charged with manslaughter, as a gun owner myself, and people know that I own some guns, not a lot of guns, more than one, less than 10. And I am a concealed carry holder here in Florida, although you don't need to get a card anymore. We have open carry, or what they call constitutional carry in this state now. But I conceal carry. I carry a Gen 3 Glock 19. I love it. But one way you could get a manslaughter charge with the gun is even if you were sober and mishandling it. It could be the girl gun went off, on its own accident that resulted in manslaughter. Well, Marty, of course, guns do not go off on their own. We don't know what kind of gun this was, but I realize that some manufacturers have had issues over the years, but if that's what happened, like if it dropped and went off, I think that this guy would not be getting charged with manslaughter. Then it would be an out-and-out accident. But if you're showing somebody a gun, come down to my basement. We got some guns here. And you forget that it's loaded or you don't think that it's loaded, and you even just by mistake point it at somebody and it goes off, you're going to get a manslaughter charge. There are going to be charges. You're not going to get away with it was an accident. That is not going to happen. This is no different than, there are ways that you can get charged with vehicular manslaughter if you're driving a car, even though you're not technically doing anything wrong. You're just not driving in a safe way. You may be following the traffic laws, but that's a good way to get vehicular manslaughter charged against you. You don't have to be drinking and driving and hit somebody and kill them to get charged with something. You don't have to be speeding 50 miles an hour over the speed limit to get charged with something if you hit somebody and kill them. And I even know from my own experience handling guns for about 10 years now, I never owned a gun until the beginning of 2016, that I know for myself, I don't even like, unless I am at the gun range, I don't even like being around people who are handling guns. When I've gone up to my dad's, he has some guns, and I might bring a couple guns with me, and he's messing around with my gun, and my dad does not want to kill me, but it still is makes me a little nervous. Once again, if you're at the range, that's just the way it is. You're standing there in your alleyway, there's somebody next to you within 4 or 5 feet. They're, maybe even on both sides, they have their guns, you have your gun, and you just got to hope nobody loses their mind and nobody does anything stupid. But you can see many, many videos here on YouTube of stupid things going on at gun ranges. And of course, that one very famous guy, that had that movie made on, what was his name? Chris Kyle. He and a buddy took that military member who had PTSD to the range. And what did the guy do? He got one of their guns and shot both of them. Remember that. So I know when I have any of my guns out and I, here in the privacy of my own condo, and I'm showing somebody, I make sure that thing is unloaded. The magazine is out, the bullets out of the chamber, the hammer or the slide is locked to the open position so you can look in it. Of course, I have semi-automatics, and you can look down in the cylinder, see there's no bullet there. That is the only way I allow a person to see one of my guns. And when somebody wants to show me their gun, it's the same thing. Don't just give me your gun, with the whatever, the slides, in the closed position. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to handle it. Don't want to, even though I have a lot of gun experience. And having been around guns for, like I said, 10 years, certainly I'm a neophyte. At 55, I'm a neophyte compared to many people who've been handling guns, especially if you're a hunter, something going back to your teens or even earlier than that. But even like at the range, you just see, and these people, mostly men, women go too. Like I said, all in favor of women having guns and concealed carrying, and it's a good way to stop a rapist. But even when I go to the gun range, and of course, the gun range I go to, pretty much you have to be a member. So these aren't people you just kind of show up and pay. You can do that, but most of the people who are shooting there are actually members and they pay an annual fee. And still, I go there and I just see some of the most, I wouldn't call it dangerous necessarily things, or if it was, I wouldn't be there, but just a lot of yahoos, with guns and things. So and you just start to realize that, you can see how gun accidents happen. And so when I see this, and I even have it written in my notes. I'm looking, of course, I don't do this live show off the top of my head. I have my notes over here on my other laptop. I even have it. Many gun owners have no idea what they're doing. And this is why, as I've talked about guns before, once again, I realize there's a lot of people out there that don't like guns, and especially people in other countries who look at gun laws in the United States and think you people are crazy, on and on and on. And I'm not here to get into any of that. But I will continue to say, if you're going to get a gun, if you're not going to learn good etiquette and how to handle it and go to the range once in a while and become comfortable with it, and to the point where you can use a gun no different than you're using a hammer or a pair of scissors or something like that, if you aren't willing to do all of that and be a conscientious gun owner and not handle guns if you've been drinking, not handling guns if you're tired, or if you're not willing to do all of that, don't get a gun. Don't do it. Because you are an accident waiting to happen. Do not do it. Don't just say, well, I'm an American and I have a right to do that. And then you get a gun, you put it in the glove box of your car, and you never shoot it. And it sits there. That is an accident waiting to happen. Whereas you learn that the best people with guns are the people who practice with them and who actually use them the most, not the least. I realize that, that some people think, well, I'm going to get a gun and it's just going to be home use and I'm going to keep it in the house. And I know that this person doesn't want me to get this, but I have a right to do this, but I'm going to, and they try to kind of like split the difference, where it's legal for them to have a gun, so they're going to get one. But because there might be a stigma where they live or family members or friends, oh, you have a gun. So they kind of split the difference. Well, I'm going to get a gun and I'm going to do this and that, but I don't want to go to the range because I don't want to be one of those people. Those are the people who are going to have the accidents. That's, to me, where the trouble is. Because when you handle guns enough and you go to the range often and you begin to appreciate how dangerous they can, and then you go, you're overtly cautious. You're overtly cognizant of how dangerous that they can be. Whereas it's the people who don't handle them very much that I think the trouble starts. So I don't know if this guy who shot his son's girlfriend falls into that category. And as the Fords say, this might be alcohol induced. And once again, if you are a drinker, and I don't even mean an alcoholic, but if you like a couple beers every day or a couple beers on the weekend and everything, I will even go as far to say you should probably not have a gun. The problem is too many people want everything. Why I deserve to have a gun? That's my American right. But you know what? I have the right to get liquored up on the weekends too. I'm not going to do any drinking and driving, but yeah, but you have that weapon sitting right there. Something you are greatly, greatly, greatly increasing the odds of something bad happening. So, yep, accident or not manslaughter. Marty really making up for all his weeks not in here. By commenting, it could have been modified. Maybe, Marty. I don't know. Maybe, yeah. I'm not a fan of that. That was horrible. Always have the safety pin on. Well, the thing is, Marty, Glocks don't have safeties. In fact, I'm going to be honest, as a gun owner myself, I'm not a big fan of safeties. My AR has a safety. My Kel-Tec Sub 2000 has a safety, but my two handguns do not. And I know this is kind of a minority opinion on the topic, but I think safeties only make people lazier when it comes to guns. We go, oh, I got the safety on, nothing bad can happen. Whereas Glocks don't have safeties. And so that. And it causes you to handle them even more overtly, cautiously. It's no different. It's like the seatbelt phenomenon. What seatbelts, of course, have helped over the years. But when seatbelts were first introduced into cars, what happened? People drove faster. Why? Because they were convinced that they couldn't get hurt. What did that do? Accidents didn't go down. Seatbelts didn't protect as many people as they thought they would. It's kind of the same thing, I think, with guns. That you put, safeties on them that only lulls people into a false sense of security. My opinion, Marty. Too many people think guns are cool. Yeah, they're not cool. They're not cool. But they're just a tool like any other. So keep an eye on this. He's charged with manslaughter. Will be interesting once the facts do get out regarding this. But as LaFord stated, if this is alcohol induced, then certainly manslaughter is a good charge. And yeah, bad. But I saw this as an opportunity. Hadn't done it in a while. Kind of give my own gun safety course here on the live show. And I realize a lot of you don't like guns, and you're not a fan of people being able to carry them. I'm not here to argue with any of you. I'm just telling you, in the places where people can legally carry guns, the gun owners can do a lot better job. Even myself as a gun owner and everything, like I said, even when I go to the gun range, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, it's exactly the reason when I go, I get there first thing. It opens at 9. I will get there first thing. I get my shooting done in like an hour and I'm out of there. No hang, a lot of these guys, they go there and they got nothing else to do. They're retired and everything. They're just kind of hanging out. That is another way for an accident to happen. I get in, I get out. It just gives me the willies sometimes. So, all right, moving on. I want to talk about this killer preacher very quickly. I got 45 minutes to go. I actually copied all of these disappearances. I'm not going to have time now to read all of it because I really want to do a good analysis of Laureen Rahn's disappearance before we're done. But this killer preacher, I'm going to see if you've heard of these women. These the first woman, and her last name is, let me see here. We have One woman, her last name is Dash, Dash. She was last seen on June 14th, 1974, over 50 years ago, when she left a residence in the 1100 block of Wildwood Street in Clearwater, Florida, to buy medicine for a sick relative she was never heard from again. Her husband reported her missing the next day. He passed a polygraph in connection with her case and was ruled out as a suspect. Dash had borrowed her teenage daughter's car when she left home. The car was eventually found abandoned in a parking lot in St. Pete, so way south of me. A month after it was last seen, she left $8,000 behind her checking account. That's a lot of money in 1974 terms. That's like $80,000. Good for her. In 2026 terms. She was, so that is one woman. The next woman was, her last name was Johnson, was last seen leaving her home to go to a class at St. Pete Junior College in Clearwater, Florida. She never arrived. Her 1987 Nissan Pulsar, so many years later, this disappearance happened. Her Nissan Pulsar, remember those, was found abandoned behind a Hardee's restaurant at Belcher Road and East Bay Drive. I go through that intersection every time I go to trivia. I know that intersection very, very well. And eventually somebody called to have the car towed. 2 days later, Johnson's father reported her missing. That same day, he got a letter supposedly from his daughter, which stated she was involved with drugs and was moving to Orlando to straighten out her life. Handwriting experts examined the letter, concluded she in fact did write it, but she was never heard from again. And then there's another woman. These are all black women, if that matters to you. Her last name was Hires, Hiers. She was last seen in the morning hours of December 19th, 1982. So we have 74 and then the late 80s. And then in between them, we have this disappearance from 1982. She was last seen driving away from her residence at the Breakers Apartments in the vicinity of 12,900 block of Campbell Lane in Largo, Florida. Once again, that's right over there. She was on her way to buy laundry detergent at the time. She left home without taking any clothing and personal belongings. A few days after her disappearance, her husband got a letter from her. Are you seeing a pattern? Saying she had left him to be with this guy, Cleveland Hill Jr., which I'll get to in a moment. And she wanted her children to stay with their father. She was never heard from again. Her white two-door 1976 Ford Elite, I don't even know what kind of car model that is, Ford Elite, I don't know, was found in March of 1983, 4 months after her disappearance, in the vicinity of the 2900 block of Gulf to Bay Boulevard in Clearwater, Florida. That is right over there. See, all these areas I know very well now living here in the 21st century. She had lived with her husband for 25 years prior to her disappearance, and they had 6 children, but they didn't marry until shortly before her disappearance, months before she vanished. Her then boyfriend found out about her affair with this guy, Cleveland Hill, a married asphalt contractor and a friend of the family. He is the main guy here. This woman Hires attempted suicide by overdosing on drugs after her boyfriend found out about the relationship. She survived, and her boyfriend agreed to marry her, and she claimed she had ended her relationship with this guy, Cleveland Hill. So we have these 3 women, one with the last name Dash, D-A-S-H. Another one with the last name Johnson. So Dash is from 1974. Johnson is from 1987. And Hires, H-I-E-R-S, is from 1982. So these disappearances are spread out over 15 years. And the belief is all 3 of these women, the cause of their disappearances was by one guy. And his name is Cleveland, yes, like the city, Hill Jr., Cleveland Hill Jr. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. In 1968, so before these women went missing, Cleveland Hill shot his wife and his mother-in-law, so his wife's mother. He did this 4 days after his wife left him and returned to her parents. He went to the in-laws' home and shot both victims multiple times. This happened in 1968. If you can believe this, they survived, and Hill was sentenced to 5 years of probation for the assault, but then went to prison for a year for probation violation. He shot 2 people and got off with 5 years of probation. So this is one of those political things and how things get so skewed and everything. And, you know, we're sold this idea that how the justice system in the United States has gotten lenient and everything else. Well, even going back to the 1960s, they were letting killers walk the way. He didn't kill anybody at that time. They were letting people who shot people walk the streets. Once again, Hill was sentenced for shooting his wife and mother-in-law who survived. It's 5 years of probation for assault. And had he followed his probation, he would have never spent any time in jail. But he did. He violated it some way. And he went to prison for a year. He was paroled in 1971. And his wife, this is crazy, and his wife, who he shot, remarried him. I'm not making this up. Truth is stranger than fiction. So after he gets out of this probation, gets out of jail, the wife who he shot remarried him because her Pentecostal church did not believe in divorce, and church leaders urged Hill's wife to give him another chance. His wife was still alive at the time of this was written, I think, in about 2018. And she's still, I don't know if she's alive now, but she lived all of those years with that bullet in her neck. So he shoots her in 1968, divorces him, I guess, remarries him. And she still has the bullet in her neck from when he shot her the first time. Now, the thing is, Cleveland Hill knew all of these missing women and had some sort of relationship with all of them. He never was charged with anything for any of these women's disappearances. So he got away with shooting his wife and his mother-in-law. Got away with the killing of at least 3 women. Nothing happened to him regarding any of that. His wife later stated she asked Hill about the missing women, and he told her, "If you keep messing with me, I will tell you what happened to those women. I can make people disappear." That's what he told his wife. When she asked him about these missing women who she knew that he knew, that was his reply to her. Eventually, he did go to prison for a long time for cocaine trafficking. For some reason, cocaine trafficking, you spend more time in jail than shooting your wife. And then he eventually died of cancer in 2018. So 8 years ago. Cleveland Hill Jr., and he was a preacher, by the way. That's why he was a preacher. Even though he's a contractor, he was the head of a church. He was a serial killer, even though he was never charged with any of these women's disappearances. And, you know, it makes me think that these women's bodies are around here in Pinellas County somewhere. And, you know, this is one of those things where, you know, when you're into disappearances like I am, that's always something that's on your mind. You're driving someplace, could a missing body, could I just be driving right by it or something? These three women, I have to believe that their remains are here in Pinellas County somewhere. Especially since, and it's weirded me out that all of these locations that are mentioned here, these are places that I've passed multiple times over the last 15 years. I also think in analyzing their disappearances, being that all of them disappeared on the way somewhere, one was going to buy medicine, one was going to school, one was going to the laundromat, he was surely stalking all of them. I'm not convinced that any of them were actually planning to meet him somewhere. And in fact, it's pretty clear to me that what brought this on is that these women, even though they were cheating on their husband, boyfriends, they had decided to put Cleveland Hill behind themselves, and he didn't like it. It's pretty clear, I think, in all three of these. And it very well may be that he's caused other women to disappear as well. And in fact, I think I even remember reading that he moved out of the Florida area and went somewhere and might have caused the disappearance of a woman in Virginia or something like that. But I'm just concentrating on these three. But I'm inclined to believe, given that all three of them were going somewhere when they disappeared, that he was following them and surprised them. And given that their cars were involved and their cars were dumped, parked wherever, that it's just amazing, isn't it? And I bet, I'm going to guess, none of you, and I know many of you read about disappearances, take an interest in true crime and everything. I'm going to guess most of you have never heard of any of this. These three women who went missing, all connected to the same guy. And maybe what's the most amazing part about it is these disappearances are spread out over 15 years. Cleveland Hill Jr., bad guy, horrible guy. Rockford says, never heard of them. Well, now, Rockford, I've given you something to... One more thing. Hello, by the way. Rockford, you see Marty's in here tonight? Did you see Marty? Did you say hi to Marty yet? Remember the good old days when, we used to get together in the think tank and Marty was, we were good enough for Marty and he used to show up, Rockford. Remember those good old days? Think tank, patreon.com/unfound podcast. Amy also says, never heard of them. Yeah. This is one of those things, as I've brought up many times before. The same disappearances get featured over and 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 over. How is it that and I guess I'm guilty, but I've at least known about these for quite a long time. How is it that there isn't a series on all of this? How is it? How's that possible? Being that they all lived here in Pinellas County, I suppose if I wanted to do a series on all, I could do that. Maybe that's the next series I'll do after the Atlantic Coast series. Given I live here, I'm going to guess some of their families actually live here in this county. Might be easy to find. Maybe I need to put that on my list of things to do. Did they have car trackers back then? Not 1970s and 80s cult. Surely not. Yeah, Rockford, let's get a Dairy Queen Blizzard. That's hilarious. So it's very sad. Nobody knows about the disappearances. I'm glad that Megan has them listed at the Charlie Project. I'm guessing they're on NamUs too, but and it just makes you wonder, these women getting mixed up with guys like that. And these guys being bad guys, I'm sure he was a smooth talker. That's certainly a quality I don't have. It's just amazing how this happens. That he shoots his wife, gets away with that, causes a woman's disappearance in 1974, causes a woman's disappearance in 1982, causes a woman's disappearance in 1987, and gets away with all of it. I just don't know. So thought you'd want to know about all that. Once again, that is the killer preacher that's in the title of tonight's episode. All right, we're going to finish tonight with the disappearance of Laureen Rahn. I did not pick this disappearance because Laureen is the first name of my brother Brian's wife, Laureen, spelled the same way. That is not the reason. The reason is that I've read about this disappearance before. I've never attempted to contact anybody in Laureen's family. I know her mother did a lot of media for many years. I don't know if her mother's still alive, because this disappearance happened way back in 1980. But just recently, there have been some articles about how the local police there in Manchester, New Hampshire, not Connecticut, Manchester, New Hampshire, are taking another look at this. Caught my eye and it was like, oh, well, maybe it's time that I take a look at it as well. So that's what we're going to do. And so, of course, I'm going to read you an account of her disappearance. I did look up some newspapers.com articles to get a little background that way. And then I'll, of course, do the questions that I would ask if I were doing a consultation with the family member on this disappearance. And then I will do my analysis of Laureen's disappearance. This is very difficult. A very, very difficult one to really be sure about, once again, if I'm trying to keep up my percentage accuracy, this is one of those that makes it really, really tough. So, and Marty and Rockford talking hockey. I know nothing about hockey. All right. Laureen Rahn, R-A-H-N. She is on the Charlie Project. She is on NamUs. She was only 14 years old. Laureen resided with her mother, Judith Rahn, in a third-floor apartment on Merrimack Street in Manchester, New Hampshire. She was a student at Parkside Junior High School and made good grades. Judith's then boyfriend was a professional tennis player. I don't know who that was. And he and Judith were out of town at a tennis tournament when Laureen disappeared on April 26th, 1980. So just over 46 years ago. She normally accompanied them, but that day she had asked to be allowed to stay home, and her mother agreed. This was during spring break at Laureen's school. That seems a little late to be having a spring break in that late in April. I wonder if that's true. That evening, Laureen, a male friend, and a female friend spent time drinking beer and wine in Laureen's apartment. Remember, she was only 14. I'm not sure the ages of the other two. The boy later stated he heard voices in the hallway of the apartment complex and left through the back door because he thought Judith was coming home and he was afraid he would get in trouble. Now, what's interesting, it's on the third floor of an apartment building and it has a back door. I don't know what to think about that. He heard Laureen lock the door behind him. So he gets out. He says he heard her lock the door behind him. When Laureen's mother got home, she got home after midnight, she noticed that the light bulbs in the hallways on all three floors of the apartment building had been unscrewed and everything was dark. I'll come back to that. Her own apartment's front door was unlocked. Judith checked Laureen's room and thought she saw Laureen in Laureen's bed. In the morning, however, Judith discovered that it was not Laureen, but her girlfriend, Laureen's friend, asleep in Laureen's room. Laureen was gone. Her clothes and brand new sneakers were in the living room, and the back door was open. Her friend stated she'd last seen Laureen sleeping on the couch. I'll come back to that. Although the police initially suspected Laureen was a runaway, Judith didn't believe her daughter had left on her own because Laureen had left behind her clothes and purse. Within a few weeks, investigators reconsidered the runaway theory. They stated it appeared as if Laureen had left the apartment willingly and intended to return within a short time. Later that year, Judith discovered that she had been charged for 3 California phone calls on October 1st. Remember that Laureen went missing at the end of April, but on October 1st, 1980, how many months later? 5 months later, that Judith discovered on her phone bill that there were these charges that were made in California, not made from New Hampshire to California, but actually calls made in California. I'll come back to that. Judith did not have any friends or relatives in California at the time, and Laureen had never lived there and had no ties to the area. 2 of the calls had been placed from a motel in Santa Monica to another motel in Santa Ana. So Santa Monica, of course, in LA, Santa Ana down in the Orange County area, kind of halfway between LA and San Diego. The 3rd call was placed to a teen sexual assistance hotline. The physician who maintained the hotline at first denied knowing anything about it. But 5 years later, for some reason, he changed his story. The doctor said that numerous runaway girls occasionally visited his wife at their home, and one of the young women may have been from New Hampshire. The individual claimed that Annie Sprinkle, a woman who allegedly worked with his wife in the fashion industry, may have had information concerning several runaways. Authorities learned that Sprinkle was involved in the pornography industry, and they scanned several of her films in an attempt to locate Laureen. No evidence linking Sprinkle to Laureen's disappearance was discovered, and she has never been implicated in the case. And I did look at Annie Sprinkle, and yes, she was a porn star. Never heard of her. An investigator visited California on Judith's behalf in 1986, so 6 years later, and located the 2 motels involved in the October 1980 phone calls. Authorities said that one of the establishments may have been used by a child pornographer named Dr. Z. Investigators were unable to link Dr. Z to the teen hotline, and it is not known if child sexual abuse images were involved in Laureen's disappearance. Importantly, the boy who was drinking alcohol with Laureen and her friend that night committed suicide 5 years later. He was never considered a suspect in her case. So, Colt says, oh, I remember this case. All right, so you remember it. Anybody else, before I go any further, anybody else remember the disappearance of Laureen Rahn, Rahn, from New Hampshire? Like I said, I ran across it before. I think the part that stuck out to me was the part about how the mother came home, saw somebody in Laureen's bed, thought Laureen was there, only to find out the next day that it was the friend instead. I think that was the little piece of information that's always stuck with me. Didn't remember the name, didn't remember the year, didn't remember the state, but that little piece has always stuck out to me. LaFord says, yeah, I do. So you've heard about it, LaFord. Okay, very good. So once again, she's at home doing things she shouldn't be doing with a female friend and a guy friend. And the mother comes home. The boy gets out of there because of allegedly voices. So it's just the 2 girls there. The girl sleeps in Laureen's bed, says the last time she saw Laureen was on the couch. Mother comes home, thinks Laureen is home. She's wrong. Next day, they figure out Laureen's not there. And Laureen is never seen again. 5 months later, there are these California charges on the mother's phone account. And I'll get into this in the analysis. And eventually somebody went out there to find out what's going on. And as I read, this doctor has this shaky story about a hotline and all this stuff. But 46 years later, this disappearance is still unsolved. Rockford says, I've looked into it. Complicated facts and timeline, unreliable information makes a mess of it too. I agree. And I'm a dinosaur. Greetings, humans. Well, greeting, dinosaur. How are you? How's the dinosaur life these days? All right. So now you should also know that a 25-year-old woman, remember that Laureen was 14, a 25-year-old woman disappeared who lived just a couple blocks away from this, disappeared 6 weeks later. Her name was Denise Denault, I think Denault, Daneault. She went missing 6 weeks later. Didn't write down all the circumstances there, but she is on the Charlie Project. She is on NamUs as well. No allegations. It doesn't sound to me like Denise knew Judith or Laureen. They didn't know each other. And there doesn't seem to be similarities in their disappearances, although they very well may be connected. It's just hard to tell. But what also should be known, though, is that a serial killer lived in the neighborhood at the time. His real name was Terry Rasmussen, Rasmussen. But while he was living in that neighborhood, he was going by the name Bob Evans, like the restaurant chain. And eventually he was caught, sent to prison. Is he still alive today? I didn't put that in my notes. So that is certainly something to consider, not just for Laureen's disappearance, but for Denise's as well. We just have to keep in mind this guy we lived in the area, although I didn't put it in my notes. Did he kill any women actually when he lived in that area? I don't have it in my notes. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. So a 14-year-old girl is gone, can't implicate her mother, doesn't say anything about where her father was. So maybe you want to think about that. All right. So what would be the questions? What would be the ideas and questions that would be on my mind if I were talking to one of her family members, or at least somebody who knew this disappearance? Well, let's say if I were able to reach out to this friend who was there that night. Maybe her name is out there somewhere. Of course, she was underage at the time. Maybe somebody knows who she is. I'd be happy to talk to her. But let's just say if I were talking to her, somebody who knew Laureen really, really well, here are some of the items, the questions that come to mind after reading all that. And like I said, I also read some newspapers.com articles. What I found interesting, at least according to newspapers.com, there wasn't a lot of media coverage of Laureen's disappearance at all. Despite her being 14, there was one article on newspapers.com that I could find that was written about Laureen's disappearance during the 1980s. One. That's it. Something to think about. So, first of all, I would want to know, well, how long had this thing been planned? It's obvious to me that, the mother's going out of town with the boyfriend, and Laureen planned this. She knew she didn't want to go. She convinced her mother she could stay at home. And this guy and this girl come over. It's unclear how old they were, but remember, alcohol was involved. Was there alcohol in the apartment? Did her mother have beer and wine at home? Or did one of those other two bring it? Were they 21? But overall, how long had this little thing been planned at the apartment? That I'd need to know that. I'd want to know more about this guy. Of course, who is he? How old was he? And was he troubled? Of course, remember, eventually 5 years later, he committed suicide. What was the boy's story about? What did he do after he left? Being that he says he left because he thought the mother was home and he didn't want to get caught there. Well, what did he do after he left? Did he go straight home? Did he go some other place else? Did he come back? We don't know. Need to know that. Also want to know, well, what did he do with his life between 1980 and 1985 when he committed suicide? Need to know that. Something that really, really stuck out to me is, why did the friend get to sleep in Laureen's room and Laureen slept on the couch? I have to tell you, given that I live by myself in this condo, and it would be a cold day in hell before somebody's sleeping in my bed and I'm sleeping out here out on the couch. Maybe that's just me. But why did it end up that the friend is sleeping in Laureen's bed, but Laureen is sleeping on the couch? I'll come back to that. So how exactly did the mother know that the lights had been unscrewed? What did she do? Check every one of them? How did she know that the lights had been unscrewed? How do we know that the lights were not because of some breaker that went out or something? Is this something she discovered later? It's unclear. She said that they were all unscrewed. Once again, did she check everyone? What kind of apartment was this? How secure was it? Was it gated? Was it not gated? The apartment complex that I lived in Las Vegas were all gated. When I lived when I first moved there up on Vegas Drive in Las Vegas. When I moved down to East Tropicana, that was gated. When I moved to South Rainbow, it was gated. What was the situation with this apartment? And even maybe more so, what kind of apartment complex? Upper scale, lower scale, middle class? Would need to know about that. As I brought up before, this apartment was on the 3rd floor, but the back door, it has a back door. I don't know how that could be. I don't even know. Maybe I didn't do it, but is the building still standing today? I don't know. But if I could get the exact address, then I could look at the building and maybe it might make sense to me. But the apartment's on the 3rd floor and it has a back door. Okay. I don't know. Was it ever determined that Laureen took anything at all? She left her sneakers. She left her purse. Well, did she take anything? I'd also want to know what else was going on in Laureen's life. Of course, disappearances are about people or children, not circumstances. What exactly was going on with all of that? And then, of course, importantly, what does the female friend say about all of this now in 2026? Now, you should know it's written in the account at the Charlie Project that, the family's convinced that many of Laureen's friends knew more than they sang. Of course, we get that a lot in child disappearances, teenage disappearances. How often does it end up being true? I don't think very often. We have like Michaela Bally from Canada. Do any of those girls who were around here that day know what happened to her? I don't think so. Stairway door exit. Maybe, Amy. I don't know. Back door. So it means like there's 2 entrances. There's like the front door of the apartment and there's the back. Maybe you're right, Amy. It just seemed I don't know what to make of that, Amy. I really don't. Once again, I'm going to have to look at the building, which I didn't do. So those are the questions that are on my mind. I also have regarding the Californians, how could calls in California be billed in New Hampshire? I'll get into that. How could that happen? Would you not need approval from the New Hampshire number? Of course, I'm old enough to remember how this all worked, like in the 1970s and 80s. I'll get to that. How long were these calls? And was anybody who was close to the Rahns, like the family in California at the time, or was anybody close to this boy who was there? Was anybody from that family living in California? Had they gone to California? Those are questions. And then I have a doctor who ran a teen assistance hotline was 1 degree of separation from a porn star. And he was running a teen hotline. And he wasn't helpful for 5 years. Okay. As you can now all see why this is very, very difficult to analyze, but I'm going to give it my best shot in the next 10 minutes. Rockford says, I don't buy Laureen on the couch at all. I think she'd already taken off. Okay, Rockford, I will take that into account. So my analysis would start here. Could it be the serial killer? I don't think there are any facts to dispute that, except to say that it doesn't seem that any of Terry Rasmussen's victims were 14 years old. He was not a serial killer of children. And in addition, there's no allegations that Terry Rasmussen even knew that, that Judith and Laureen even existed. And if we're to think this, then it would have to be some unfortunate chance encounter, wrong place, wrong time, where Laureen left the apartment and just happened to run into this guy. And you know that I would not be a big fan of that type of scenario, although it does happen. It's just very rare. Joyce says, I rented a 3rd-room apartment. There was a front and back door that led to outside. That was in New Jersey. All right, Joyce Ruvatuza coming in and saying it's not crazy. All right, Joyce, I'm certainly going to have to check this building out now. So, analysis, the serial killer, Terry Rasmussen, does not seem likely to me. What seems likely, and I'm not giving my final theory yet, but what seems likely is that the boy leaves. Of course, they wait a few minutes. It's not her mother. And Laureen goes out to try to bring that boy back. That seems something that a teenager would do. In fact, this disappearance is an excellent example why you can't use logic to analyze disappearances. Because the logic, quote unquote, of an adult, whether they're 35 or my age 55 or older, is different from the logic of a teenager. For an adult, you'd be looking at a situation like this and you'd be like, you know what? Let's just call it a night. But the logic of a teenager is, oh, my mother's not home anymore, not yet. I'm going to go back out and see that guy. I'm not saying that Laureen did that, but that is what teenagers do. So once again, well, common sense tells me logic. Well, according to who? Logic isn't as set in stone as we make it out to be. Logic is very malleable and flexible. People treat it like it's carved. It's logic is the same thing for everybody. In disappearances, it's not. It just isn't. Because so many times what do people say? Well, if I was that person, I wouldn't have done that. Well, then obviously you're saying that logic is not a good way to judge these things, because that person did one thing, you would do something else, meaning that person, made sense to that person's common sense is different from your common sense. That person's logic is different from your logic. So then how can you use logic to analyze any of this? So, but there are no facts to dispute the idea that she went out to get this guy, although it seems likely based on what we think we know about teenagers. It's hard for me to think that she got sex trafficked from New Hampshire to California just on the strength of that night. Is it physically possible to drive a 14-year-old from New Hampshire to California? Yes. But then what are we talking about here? Some sex trafficker just happened upon her when she went out that night. Once again, seems unlikely. This would more strike me in the vein of something that was planned. but that seems somewhat unlikely too. It's just hard for me to understand how she went from a sleepover to California. Hard to understand. I will tell you also, the California thing sounds fake to me. It's just a little too perfect. And I can't understand, once again, the way I remember how, charging calls back at that time. If you wanted to make a call, let's say old school, phone on the wall. I wanted to call my brother who's over in Polk City. And I wanted to bill it to my dad in Pennsylvania. The way that would happen is that you'd get on the line and then the operator would have to call and say, hey, your son wants to bill this long distance call to your bill. Is that okay? That's the way I remember it working when you wanted to bill somebody else for you just couldn't, say, hey, just bill this. Hey, I'm making this call to Polk City. Yeah, just bill it to any dang phone number you want or bill it. You couldn't do that. I mean, that's chaos. So the only way these numbers, these calls could have been billed to Judith's number in New Hampshire is if somebody at her phone number allowed it in October. Yet she's acting like she doesn't know anything about it. In addition, if that was Laureen and she could use the phone, then why didn't she call 911? She's calling a teen assistance hotline, but she's not calling 911, which existed back then. In addition, how would Laureen ever, being in California, ever know the number to dial for a teen assistance hotline in California? And how would she get the number for a number of a Hope Motel down in Santa Ana without calling information? It all sounds like she had a lot of time on her hands. And she called a teen assistance hotline, obviously meaning she thought she was in trouble. It doesn't call 911. I don't think that's what happened. I have to admit, this sounds like a put on. I can't rule out the idea, and this happens, where families get a little desperate and they come up with ways to get additional attention to their disappearances, and they do it in not the most legal or moral or ethical ways. This is what I think about these California phone calls. It's just a little too quaint, little too perfect. And of course, it didn't go anywhere. Also, drinking. She had good grades, but drinking as soon as her mother left is a bad sign. Laureen might have been living a bit of a lie. A sex trafficker actually going into an apartment sounds unlikely. Annie Sprinkle, I looked up, certainly a porn star at the time, but it seems she was mainly doing work in San Francisco. This disappearance is hard to analyze because I doubt a major part of the case, the California phone calls. As I've already stated, only one story written on newspapers.com about it. Question, did friends knew more than they admitted? Probably not. Rockford says Rasmussen Evans was a child killer, but I believe he was targeting the mother in each case. I listened to a podcast series on him a while back. I don't think he's good for the wrong case. I didn't see that. So we have this situation where a girl seemingly went off by herself and then somehow allegedly ends up in California. I don't think that happened. What I could be, once again, going back to, if anybody, of course, we're about at the end. If anybody wants to email me, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. if they have a different idea about how these phone charges in California could have ended up on a bill in New Hampshire, let me know. But to my knowledge, the only way it could have happened is if somebody at Judith's, her mother's number, picked up the phone and said, hey, somebody wants to make a call from Santa Monica to Santa Ana. Will you pay for it? And she said, yes. It's the only way it could have happened. So who then said yes? It's just hard to understand. I don't think that she ran off, just willy-nilly, run away, took off, start a new life or anything like that. I don't believe that the serial killer did it. How even when it comes to a random person, once again, regarding the lights and them being unscrewed, this sounds like somebody creating a story. Unless, I don't know if she's still alive. She went and checked every light. What is she, the maintenance person? Dean, cell phones in 1980, D? No. 1980? No. Maybe very, very rudimentary ones, but I don't think that's a factor here. I have to say, once again, I want to say this again, what I was going to say about her sleeping on the couch. To me, this is a sign that there was some sort of understanding that she was going to be going out. If Laureen would have been in her bed, going to sleep in her bed, then she would be in for the night. But when I hear that she was letting her friend sleep in her own bed and Laureen was sleeping on the couch, to me, that means she was thinking about going out. And as boring as this is, I think that she went out to meet that boy. And remember, he did end up committing suicide. It's given everything, that's the best I can do. I can't explain the California stuff. I just don't believe it. Once again, going by what I remember about how long distance calls were billed back then. And plus, it seems to be a little too perfect. But the way I understand teenagers, he takes off. She finds out that, it wasn't my mother coming home, and said, I'm going to go back out and get him. And she tracks him down. And what do? They decide not to go back there because why? The friend's there. And maybe Laureen and this guy want to do stuff, adult stuff. That is the best that I can do on I think that getting caught up in all the California stuff, a total diversion. And even though the police think that this boy didn't do it, there's not much other choice, to be honest. And like I said, I can't explain the California stuff. Maybe if you look into this disappearance, and certainly Rockford, I'd love to, if you want to email me, give me some more insights of yours or anybody else who knows about this disappearance. I think LaFord, you said that you know about this disappearance. Love to hear your insights. Unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. But that is all I have for tonight. But I think that this guy, however old he was, the young man who was there that night, I think he did something to her. It's the best I can do. Kind of boring, but I just don't think the facts go any other direction. But this Friday, like I've already stated, finally get to bring to you the disappearances of Teresa Hickman and Angela Westbury, who went missing in December of 1984, but after getting on a boat in Jacksonville. Angela's sisters, Anita and Denise, will be the guests. I've tried to reach somebody in Teresa Hickman's family. Her sisters will not get back to me for whatever reason. And we'll be releasing the names of the guys for the first time. It's not in the public anywhere, but this Friday you will hear the names of the guys who took them on the boat. And we'll put forth what we think actually happened. So that's all I got. Jen, good to see you. D, there we go. Ed, thanks for amazing show. You're welcome. D, good night. Everybody's getting out of here, so I'm gonna get out of here. Charlie, say hi to the son, your sons for me. Everybody, keep your heads on swivels out there. Be safe. Do not become victims. Do not end up on my podcast. Good night.